In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the effects of tariff under partial equilibrium and effects of tariff under general equilibrium. First of all, we are going to discuss about the effects of tariff under partial equilibrium. So, the partial equilibrium perspective, the effects of tariff can be analyzed by using partial or microeconomic analysis and general or macroeconomic analysis. When a small country imposes tariff on import of the product that competes with the product of the small domestic industry, the tariffs can neither affect the international prices as the country is small, nor can it affect the rest of the country as the industry is small. In that case, partial equilibrium analysis becomes appropriate. So, the assumptions under partial equilibrium analysis are: number one, the demand and supply curve of the given commodity are concerned with the home country that imposes import tariff. Number two, the given demand and supply curves remain constant. Number three, there is no change in consumers' taste, price of other commodities, and money income of the consumers. Number four, there is an absence of technological improvements, externalities, and other factors that result in changes in cost conditions. Number five, no tariff is imposed by the home country on the import of materials that are required for producing the given commodity. Number six, imported product and home produced product are perfect substitutes. Assumption number seven, there is no change in the foreign price of the commodity. Number eight, there is an absence of transport costs. Number nine, the foreign supply curve of commodity is perfectly elastic. And assumption number 10, the last one, domestic production of commodity takes place at increasing cost. So, Kindleberger, the international economist, has mentioned 8 effects of tariff in a partial equilibrium approach. These include: number 1, protective or production effect. Number 2, consumption effect. Number 3, revenue effect. Number 4, redistribution effect. Number 5, terms of trade effect. Number 6, competitive effect. Number 7, income effect. And number 8, balance of payments effect. So, we are going to discuss about the various effects of partial equilibrium analysis under tariff imposition. So, the different effects of tariff imposition can be discussed as already mentioned. Number 1, protective or production effect. The imposition of tariff may be intended to protect the home industry from the foreign competition. As tariff restricts the flow of foreign products, the home products find an opportunity to increase the domestic production or import substitutes. Ellsworth termed the production effect as import substitution effect. As we can see in the diagram, diagrammatically it is assumed that the world supply of the given commodity is perfectly elastic so that it is available at a constant price, and the world supply is perfectly elastic. The domestic production of the commodity is assumed to be at an increasing cost. Therefore, the domestic supply curve is positively sloping. It is obvious in the diagram. The domestic demand curve slopes negatively. In the figure 1, as mentioned, demand and supply curve are assumed along the horizontal axis and price along the vertical axis. Capital D and capital S are the domestic demand and supply curves of the given commodity respectively. Originally, PW, capital P, capital W, PW is the world supply curve of the commodity, and the pre-tariff price is, as it can be seen, OP, capital O, capital P. At the price OP, the domestic supply is OQ and demand is OQ1. The gap OQ1 between demand and supply is made through import of the commodity from abroad. If PP1, capital P, capital P1 per unit tariff is imposed on import, the price rises to OP1 and the world supply curve shifts to P1W1. So, due to imposition of tariff, the supply curve shifts to P1W1. At this higher price, the demand is reduced from OQ1 to OQ2, whereas the domestic supply expands from OQ to OQ1. Thus, the domestic production of import substitutes takes place to the extent of OQ3. In case the per unit tariff were PP2, causing the price to rise to OP2, the domestic production would have expanded large enough to meet fully the domestic demand. So, in such a situation, imports would have been reduced to zero, and Kindleberger has termed as the protective production or import substitution effect. So, the next effect is the consumption effect. The imposition of import duty on a particular commodity has the effect of reducing consumption and also the net satisfaction of the consumers. According to the above figure 1, at the free trade price OP, the total consumption was OQ1. It was constituted by OQ as the consumption of home produced good and OQ1 as the consumption of foreign produced good. After the imposition of tariff, when price rises to OP1, the consumption is reduced from OQ1 to OQ2. Out of it, OQ3 is the consumption of home produced good and Q2, Q3 is the consumption of foreign produced good. Thus, there is a reduction in consumption by OQ1 minus OQ2, which is equal to Q1, Q2. So, there is net loss in consumer satisfaction amounting to the area PHCP1, which is obvious in the diagram. Kindleberger has called the combined protective and consumption effects as the trade effect. Subsequent to the imposition of tariff, the volume of international trade gets reduced from Q1 to Q2, Q3. So this is about the consumption effect. The next effect is number 3, revenue effect. The imposition of import duty provides revenues to the government. The revenue receipts due to tariff signify a revenue effect. In the figure 1, the original price OP does not include any tariff and no revenue receipts become available to the government. Subsequently, when PP1 per unit tariff is imposed, the revenue receipts of the government can be determined by multiplying per unit tariff PP1 or BF with the quantity imported, that is Q3, Q2, or it is EF. Thus, the revenue receipts due to tariff amount to PP1 into QQ2, which equals to BF into EF, or it is the area BCEF. This is the revenue effect to tariff. So, as an imposition of per unit tariff, the government generates revenue. So, this is known as the revenue effect. The next effect is number 4, redistribution effect. The imposition of tariff on the one hand causes a reduction in consumer satisfaction and on the other hand provides a larger producer's surplus or economic rent to domestic producers and revenues to the government. Thus, tariff leads to redistributive effect in the tariff imposing country. The redistributive effect can be shown with the help of the above figure 1. So, it is obvious from the figure, loss in consumers surplus, which equals to the area triangle RHP minus RCP1, which equals to the area PHCP1. So this is the loss in consumers surplus. Next is gain in producers surplus. So it equals to the area triangle TBP1 minus triangle TAP, which equals to the area PABP1. So this is the gain in producers surplus. Next one is gain in revenues to the government, which equals to the area BCEF. So net loss, which equals to the area PHCP minus sum of the areas of PABP1 plus BCEF, which again equals to the area of the triangles BAF plus triangle ACEH. Kindleberger calls this net loss as the deadweight loss due to tariff. It signifies the cost of tariff. It is clear that tariff causes a redistribution of income or satisfaction in the given country. Consumers suffer a loss while producers and government makes a gain. So the next effect is the terms of trade effect. The traditional theorists believe that tariff led to an improvement in the terms of trade of the tariff imposing countries. The modern theorists, however, do not hold such a simplistic view. In their opinion, the terms of trade consequent upon the imposition of tariff depend upon the elasticities of demand and supply of products of the two trading countries. If the foreign supply of a good is perfectly elastic, or if the foreign suppliers are ready to supply the product at a constant price, the imposition of tariff is not likely to improve the terms of trade for the tariff imposing country. In case the foreign supply of a good is not perfectly elastic, the imposition of tariff can have varying effects upon the terms of trade of the tariff imposing country depending upon the elasticities of demand and supply in the two trading countries. It has been explained through the following figure. In figure 1a, country A is an importing country and country B is an exporting country. The domestic demand and supply curves of the exporting country B are less elastic. Country B imposes per unit tariff of P0 P2 amount for reducing import of the commodity. Since the domestic demand is inelastic, the surplus product of country B can be disposed of in the other country A. Therefore, the exporters lowers the price of the commodity by P1 P0. So, P0 P1 part of tariff is borne by exporters and P1 P2 part of it by importers. If the tariff burden borne by importers in country A is less than the burden borne by the exporters, that is, if P1 P2 is less than P1 P0, the rise in the price of the commodity in country A is less than the fall in the export price of the commodity in country B. In such a situation, the terms of trade become favorable to the tariff imposing country A. In case P1 P2 is more than P1 P0, the rise in price of the commodity in country A being larger than the falling export price of the commodity in country B, the terms of trade get worsened for country A. It can happen when the elasticities of the demand and supply for the country A is greater than country B. Next, we are coming to the competitive effect of tariff. The imposition of tariff can facilitate the growth of an infant industry which otherwise is not in a position to face the foreign competition. As tariff makes the foreign product relatively more costly, the domestic infant industry finds opportunity to grow behind the protective shield. Thus, tariff increases the competitive power of the industries of tariff imposing country. After the infant industry becomes mature enough to face the foreign competition, tariff may be removed. The increase in the competitive power of the domestic industries through tariff is called as the competitive effect. The fears are, however, expressed that protection breeds inefficiency and promotes the growth of monopolies. Then the next effect is income effect. The imposition of tariff reduces the demand for foreign products. The amount of money not spent on imported goods may either be spent on the home products or saved. If there is the existence of surplus productive capacity in the home country, this excess money will increase production, employment and income of the home country. So this is the income effect. Then the last effect is the balance of payment effect. When tariff is imposed by a country upon foreign products, the home produced goods become relatively cheaper than the imported goods. The price effect caused by tariff reduces imports from other countries and caused increased production and purchase of home produced goods. That leads to a reduction in the balance of payments deficit of the home country. Next, we are going to discuss the general equilibrium effect of imposition of tariff. So that is general equilibrium analysis. In the general equilibrium analysis, a study is made of the effects of tariff on consumption, production, trade and welfare. When a country imposes a tariff, not only a specific product or sector, but practically every sector of the economy gets affected in one way or the other until the economic system reaches a new equilibrium position. The general equilibrium analysis of tariff is made from the viewpoint of a small country and a large country. When the tariff imposing country is small, the domestic price of the importable commodity will rise by the full amount of tariff for the individual consumers and producers in the small tariff imposing country. The international price of the commodity will, however, remain unaffected. The divergence between the price of the importable commodity for individual producers and consumers and the importing country as a whole is of critical or crucial importance in analyzing the effect of tariff upon welfare. So, the assumptions of general equilibrium analysis. The general equilibrium analysis of tariff in case of a small country can be attempted on the basis of the following assumptions. Assumption number 1, the trade takes place between two countries, country A and country B. Assumptions number 2, the home country A is small. Number 3, there are two commodities, cloth and steel, being exchanged between them. Number 4, cloth is exportable and steel is importable commodity. Number 5, the imposition of tariff by A upon importable commodity steel raises the import price of steel for domestic producers and consumers upon the full amount of tariff. Number 6, world price of steel remains unaffected. Number 7, the revenues collected by the government through tariff are spent by the government to subsidize public consumption such as schools, health services, etc. The production and consumption effects of tariff upon country A can be analyzed through the following figure 2. In figure 2, the production possibility curve related to two commodities, that is cloth and steel, is capital A, capital A1. So it is AA1. In the absence of international trade, the point of consumption and production equilibrium is B. In the conditions of free international trade, P0 is the international exchange ratio line and the production equilibrium point is E. The consumption equilibrium point is R1 that lies on the community indifference curve C2. In this situation, country A exports Fe quantity of cloth and imports Rf quantity of steel. If tariff is imposed but the world prices of commodities remain the same, the international exchange ratio line is P1B, which is parallel to the original international exchange ratio line P0 P0. Now, production equilibrium shifts to B, where country A produces a large quantity of steel, which is importable good, domestically. This is the production or protective effect of tariff. The consumption equilibrium shifts from point R1 to point R2 in the diagram, where the international exchange ratio line PB becomes tangent to a lower community indifference curve C1. It shows that tariff has caused a reduction in the welfare of the tariff imposing small country. The shift in consumption point from R1 to R2 signifies the consumption effect of tariff. After tariff, country exports BD quantity of cloth and imports R2D quantity of steel. Thus, in the case of a small tariff imposing country, the import tariff has adverse effects. Firstly, since world prices of exchange commodities remain unchanged, tariff fails to bring about an improvement in the terms of trade for the home country. Secondly, although there is an increased production of import substitutes within the home country, yet the diversion of resources from the production of cloth, in case of which the country was enjoying comparative advantage and was having specialization, shows the missed allocation of resources and consequent loss to country A. Thirdly, the shift of consumption equilibrium to a lower community indifference curve indicates loss in welfare for the tariff imposing country. Fourthly, tariff not only reduces imports but also the exports of the tariff imposing country. The reduction in the volume of trade is not only a loss to the tariff imposing country but also for the rest of the world. So next is the general equilibrium analysis of tariff in case of a large country. If the tariff imposing country is large, the reduced demand for imports subsequent upon the imposition of tariff may reduce the world demand for the product to such a great extent that the price of importable good falls. In such a situation, the fall in import price relative to export price causes a change in the international price ratio and brings about an improvement in the terms of trade of the tariff imposing large country. The production effect, consumption effect, and terms of trade effect due to tariff can be explained through the figure 2. If tariff causes a fall in the price of importable commodity, still relative to the price of exportable commodity, the international exchange ratio line shifts to P2B, which is more steep than the exchange ratio line P0 P0 or P1B. In this case, the production equilibrium takes place at B and consumption equilibrium occurs at R3, where PB becomes tangent to the higher community indifference curve C3. The large tariff imposing country A imports R3D quantity of steel and exports BD quantity of cloth. No doubt, lesser production of cloth involves misallocation of resources and reduced specialization in production, yet country A is better off because of positive consumption and terms of trade effect. Thank you.